All right, welcome everyone to USFanTV. We're talking US women tonight. Not only did they qualify for the World Cup, which I think we mentioned last week, but they swept the Women's Championship, the CONCACAF Women's Championship. Then we have US men versus Peru, since YouTube made sure we couldn't do this the other night. And then we'll follow up with some of the news about who the next coach of the US could be and who some maybe the coach of Mexico could be, who some former or where some former U.S. national team players are going to be coaching now. But I am Chris. With us not tonight is Hat Guy. He's decided that his marriage is more important. His anniversary, I should say, so it doesn't sound like that was something bad. And then in attendance, the one and only TJ.
I'm still not sure why you're justifying Pat here. We know that guy is out on strike again. He's still holding out for more money. He's using the farce of his anniversary as an excuse, but we really know it's just part of his slowdown, looking for more money, and we're going to keep holding out. So,
pretty much. All right. So, first up, we have the women's national team, 2-0 versus Canada in the championship of the women's CONCACAF Women's Championship. Rose Lavelle scored in the second minute, and Alex Morgan in the 89th. That turned into a plus 26, 26-0 in 5 games.
But realistically, should it be 1.5? Because she really was offsides on the second goal. It really wasn't that close.
My feeling is kind of about both goals was one, she was offsides. The first one I also thought was, I mean, look, it's startling. It's and I don't know, important to point out one of the big deals from the entire tournament was we never scored later than the 10th minute, maybe even the 9th minute. Like the latest we ever scored an opening goal in a match in this tournament was against TNT in the 9th or 10th minute. To get one against Canada in the second minute, it definitely made the entire tournament easier. But it was such it came from a terrible clearance. Like I don't remember who the Canadian defender was who just half-assed this clearance right to the top of the box, right in the very center of the circle, essentially. And Rose Lavelle's just kind of standing there. Like she collects the ball, takes a little dip, and shoots it right into the corner. I mean, you take the shots you're given, but it's also to me, it's a little bit of why they went 26-0. You know, why they just ran the table. CONCACAF is CONCACAF. You know, men or women, it's not exactly the highest caliber.
No, and I mean, let's face it. Realistically, okay, Panama and Jamaica.
Yeah,
have gone to some of their first World Cups, but they're not. When they get there, they're there. But it's the U.S., Mexico, and Costa Rica is typically the men's side, and the women's side, it's the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah.
Now, and I believe it was a year ago in April, TNT's women's team was crowdsourcing funding to get from Houston to Houston for a tournament, I believe. So it's not like these other countries are putting money into their women's programs. Now, that said, in watching the tournament, I watched some of it. I won't say I watched tons, but I did watch some of it. And there was the I believe the forward with Jamaica who was outstanding, and then the goalkeeper from Panama who's 17 and just gave up 6 goals to the U.S. and easily could have given up 20 with as many amazing saves as she made in that match. And it's when you see things like that, it's hard, but until these countries start investing and start building infrastructure, and I guess it's kind of, if you want to take it the next step, it's kind of the same thing if you want to go how hard it is to build a program from nothing. It's not easy, even at a national level, where in theory they should have more resources. If they don't have the infrastructure in place, club leagues, so on and so forth, there's only so many spots you can play. If there's no money in it, it's not worth, you can't make it as a living, and you can kind of keep going from there. But it's the U.S. and Canada both made it, and But congratulations to Jamaica. Simon, I'm sure, is happy that Jamaica is going to their first Women's World Cup. So
Yeah, oh, I didn't think to say something to him like on Twitter or whatever. So if he shows up, we'll have to make sure to note him. Yeah, yeah, that was a big deal for them, definitely.
so they go to Paris next summer, or I guess Paris. Where else are the games in France?
I haven't even looked at where all the games are next summer, but yeah, they'll. I mean, of course, we knew they were going. I think we talked about it last week. I know we talked about it. I just don't remember if we talked about it on the show. But
Don't remember. So
yeah, but yeah, no surprise. It definitely was surprising, I think, though, to see that they didn't even uh, take on a goal. I mean, that to me is probably the most startling thing because look, we knew they were going to be in the final of this tournament pretty much regardless. We knew they were going to qualify for the World Cup. We didn't. I certainly didn't expect they were just going to keep like five clean sheets. No one was even going to score on them. I was surprised in the Canada game, in a sense, how physical it truly got. Like, Canada really did. They were doing fouling on the style or on a level you usually only see at some of like the crappier men's international games. Some of the games we sometimes experience in CONCACAF, and just hang all
well,
over people.
I
I
believe
remember.
I believe after the game, Megan Rapinoe was quoted as saying, "We hate them and they hate us." Does it make sense as to why some of these fouls were a little bit more
I
intense than usual?
I was just gonna say like there was a shot Rapino took in the first half. I can't remember when it was, um, but like you watch and I mean she's got a defender like not just holding her arm but just about like holding her entire body. Like the last two dribbles she takes and then the shot, um, it was a level of contact that you don't usually see in the women's game. I was actually I kind of taken aback at how physical it truly got.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, hey, they're Canadian. I mean, it's three quarters. It's three quarters of a team, but they know hockey, so maybe they just needed to start doing some checking, get some Tim
they were
Hortons
they
going,
were
and
just checking. Yeah,
yeah, there you
they're
go.
trying to board somebody. All
So
right. So anyway, congratulations to the women. Here's to you. Glad to be seeing you next summer in France. Hopefully in Paris for the final. On to then U.S. men tying Peru Tuesday night. As we said, YouTube did not allow us to go on to actually discuss the game afterwards. But
now was you? Now we know you're the one that actually broke YouTube, correct?
I was out watching the game and then the Brewer game, so I am innocent in this case. I was um, I could barely even use a phone. I had a lot of things going on at the time.
It called your blood alcohol content, Chris.
It was not. It was not. I don't know why you guys like think that all I do is drink. I don't. I honestly don't do that much. I
No,
just
but
got very serious about something that was a joke.
let's see. The U.S. national team's going. You got the Brewers going, and YouTube goes down. Chris and alcohol, yes, all related. So that said,
Anyway, your thoughts on the game.
well, I think I sent you and Pat each pictures that kind of sum my thoughts. One was my son asleep in the first half. The second half was my daughter asleep, and the first half was not pretty. It was
It
it
was
was
painful.
it was painful. They defended, they defended, but Peru didn't do anything. It was kind of like
Hmm.
watching the basketball team doing four corners the whole time, but not making any effort to take shots really. And it was
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
awful.
There were certainly some things that I think the U.S. did well in the midfield and maybe covering on the wings to prevent some of the problems that happened against Colombia. But yeah, man, I'm sure some of it is just that Peru isn't as good as Colombia. I mean, they don't have guys on the level of like James Rodriguez to to
or
kind of take over.
or Falcao.
Falcao. I mean, you
Yeah.
name it. A number of those guys are a step ahead of anyone we could field, anyone Peru could field, anyone most of the world could field, short of like a handful of countries. Um, so it definitely made for a different contest. I mean, Peru wasn't. They had opportunities. I would say some of the similar opportunities that Colombia had, but they weren't able to exploit them in the same way. And I don't know if they were. I, I can't. Some of it I can't explain. Like you would have thought, especially with the number of lineup changes that were expected, and I don't know, like we didn't have a very experienced squad anyway.
Yeah.
You would think they would kind of take the game at us. And while they certainly controlled possession throughout, they didn't really try to put the ball in the net
No,
that much.
I guess, and I typically like to use other sports analogies to go. It was like they were content to sit out 3-point line and just keep jacking up threes from 30 feet and see what happened instead of trying to crash the lane. And it really wasn't or a power play where you're just content passing it around on the outside. They didn't make much effort to come to the middle, and I don't know why. Especially coming through on their right or the US's left, where they've seen it a few times in the chat box, and they're 100% right. Ben Sweat is not the answer at left back. He is. Hey, if you're looking for somebody to be a
To
highlight
make you
reel of,
sweat.
I was going to say, if you want to see somebody who's going to be a highlight reel of going around them, Ben Sweat's going to be your guy that you're going to go around. At least in this appearance. Maybe he'll get better. I hope he gets better.
My feeling, I mean, I wasn't really a fan of calling him in anyway, just because to me he's too old. Like if you haven't locked it down by 27, when we're in kind of a revolution in terms of a youth revolution anyway, why do you bring in guys who are presumably nearing the end of their peak anyway?
Well, and some
Or at
guys
least will have peaked by the next World Cup anyway.
but some guys come into their own later, and you know what?
Sure.
And again, it's back to that same concept that we've both addressed several times. Right now, Sarakin is just casting a wide net. He's, as much as we complain, he's looking at everybody. Hey, if he thinks they got a chance, why not give him a run out? These games don't matter. I've said this over and over again. You and Pat have said it over and over. These games don't matter. This is where you get to see what some of these guys can or cannot do. In the case of Ben Sweat, looks like it's the cannot do at the national level, at the international level. But hey, you don't know it unless you find it out. And it's the same as kind of what the U.S. has used the Gold Cup in the past. The not qualifying means you've had almost a year and a half to really try these things out. And
that's fair.
Yeah, and you're going to have or I should say it'll be a year and a half where you get games that matter, and this is where you keep doing it. You don't have a coach in place, and that's why I'm not concerned about having the coach. Sarakin he's basically giving whoever takes the job plenty of things he can study.
Oh, he's
different styles of play.
Doing research for them, yeah.
Exactly, and that's why I agree with Taylor Twellman in his assessment that there is a spot on the bench for Dave Sarakin with whoever gets hired, because he has done all the research. He's looked at all the young guys. He's tried different types of formations, different styles of play to really give whoever ultimately takes over. They don't have to do that research. It's in front of them. They can start looking at it and see where their strengths and weaknesses are. So I applaud Dave Sarakin for that. For a job he knows he's not getting, he's still the company guy and still doing the right things that we've said you need to do in this time. And everybody's.
I don't disagree there. I mean, frankly, as I think I've said, I don't want to see him continue, but part of me says, like, if not for the debacle last fall, the guy has kind of earned the job. Like he's done everything you asked of him. He's done everything you could have hoped, and he's really played to help the organization as opposed to just helping himself. Because as I brought up before, if you knew you were only going to have the job for 6 months or 12 months or whatever, I mean, he probably thought 2 months when he took over as interim manager. Why don't you just play to just like call in the best guys, try and set up your best lineup, and just get bullshit victories and pad your stats, so you'll always go down as the winningest coach in U.S. soccer history. Because you only coached 2 games, but you won them both. And he never tried that. He clearly set the goal of finding the next generation, and it's incredibly admirable.
And that's kind of it is um I guess the one I keep thinking of, you're talking about go and put these strong lineups together. Steve Sampson, basically try to Sampson your way into the job, and no, he hasn't. He went out and said, "Hey, let's see what these young kids could do. Let's throw them in situations they're uncomfortable with, like what a squad full of guys who can't drink in Ireland, playing a game in Ireland, playing a game in France. He that that's what we wanted to see. That's what you needed to
Yeah,
see.
yeah,
And that's why, like I said, when everybody loses their damn minds about they need a coach, they need all this and that, I'm like, what's the coach going to do that's much different than Dave Sarakin? Nothing really. Maybe start implementing his own style. But what Sarakin has
yeah.
really
For
done
for
with this,
me,
and that might be the only thing, is he implement his own style. But what Sarakin has allowed them to do is to take what styles are going to be better suited, and the coach can then tweak his style to fit that. But like I said, that's why I'm not overly concerned about who they hire as a coach and when they hire him. They still have 6-8 months before next June, before games that actually matter towards anything. And then it's the Gold Cup. Even that really doesn't matter. So
yeah. New Jersey Ace and Josh Sargent Goat. Yeah, Dallas tried Acosta at left back. Didn't we try Acosta at left back as well a few years ago? When
probably
he was first getting a chance with the national team. Um, it's not a natural position for him. That said, I don't know if he like. I definitely think his stock grew while he was over these past two games, um, but he's not replacing Weston McKennie. Um, if Pulisic plays in the center of the field, you have to start thinking there's only so many players you can fit into the middle of the field. I don't think Acosta probably makes the cut most of the time.
no, right?
Granted, as we've seen lately, we can have games in which Pulisic, McKennie, others on that list, maybe Sargent going forward, are hurt, and you need more guys in the center, and he can do it. But the guy works hard. Yes, his first touch let him down several times. He probably would have had a goal. What was that, in the second half? I think when
Yeah.
Sargent played a ball to him as he was coming into the box, he just played it too long and just ran it right out of bounds. Um, so there were several instances in which that happened. Uh, I would say there were several instances in which his passes weren't very good, but then again, that happened a lot in both of these games for players all over the field. So it's hard for me to knock one single guy on that. But he definitely had some issues with his first touch. That said, he covered a lot of ground, did a lot of good things, and
And the bottom line though is, if they're all healthy, it's Pulisic, it's Tyler Adams, and it's
yeah,
Weston McKennie. Those are your three
yeah,
in the middle. We know that
yeah.
already. And when you start going down that road, even Michael Bradley really doesn't have a spot in it. Maybe we can try
No,
Michael Bradley at left back at this point. I mean, but Ben Sweat is not the answer at left back.
yeah.
Anthony Robinson isn't
To
showing it
me,
yet. Maybe.
he didn't show it the other day. He hasn't shown it, I guess, in a couple games now. But one, they've been very good teams that he's played against. Very good players that he had to cover, and he's 20 years old. Yes, certainly if you're, I don't know, Brazil or somebody, you're like, yeah, no, we can find better. Can the U.S. find better?
I don't know. Yeah.
So at 20, sure, he hasn't quite learned how to defend yet. At 20, I can think of, say, a defender on the right side of the field who was having very similar problems. Who, sure, he could get forward and play offense, but he wasn't always playing defense. Still, I already saw people commenting on the goal and whether it was DeAndre's fault. So we'll get to that in a minute. But you know, to some extent, Anthony Robinson reminds me of DeAndre Yedlin just a few years ago. Give him a chance to really learn to defend at a top level, and maybe he makes some of those moves better. Maybe he doesn't get burned on some of those. Maybe he doesn't buy the fake the first time, and he positions himself better so he can recover, and those guys don't blow past him, or he doesn't turn into a liability on the out wide on the left, so that their right wing or right midfielder or their like right wing back is just like overlapping everything, just blowing past him, or they're just passing around him, and he just becomes a passing dummy out on the field.
Yeah. So do we want to touch on the elephant in the room, or do we want to talk, or do we want to do something happy first, and we can talk about Josh Sargent and finding the back of the net?
I will get to Josh Sargent in a second. I will say on the goal, I don't think it was only DeAndre's fault. Who was it? Delgado who let him let him go. I think
it's both.
I think Tim Weah also could have probably tracked back in there. Because I think he was covering. God, who was it who scored? I can't even remember now. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
No, it really doesn't.
That said, you were the defender closest to this guy sprinting through the box at a ball. You should have responded. But whatever. Like I just said, there were multiple guys who failed on that play who could have taken it up. Yedlin still had someone behind him, so it wasn't as though he was just standing there without marking anyone or without covering anything.
He got caught. I mean, the bottom line is the problem for Yedlin is he got caught ball watching. Yeah. So I mean, and that's what happened, and not the best goal to give up, but you know what? For as much time as Peru had in the final third, the fact that you only gave one up, I guess I'd take that as probably as much of a positive, or is it more of a negative on Peru than it is anything else? I mean, Peru did go to the World Cup. They weren't great in the World Cup, but they weren't awful either by any stretch. They're not a terrible team.
But
I'd probably put them between Costa Rica and Mexico in terms of level of play. So
that said, I mean, hey, we weren't a terrible team. If not for one terrible night, we would have been in the World Cup.
Several terrible nights, but we'll go with the one.
Several, but in the end, there's just one horrible one that sealed the deal. Yes, there were lots of times in which we could have avoided that final night completely. I mean, there were numerous mistakes along the way. But
if they don't let Marquez score in Columbus, let's start with the obvious. If they decide to actually go to Costa Rica, if they actually decide to show up in Costa Rica, maybe you steal a point there. I mean,
yeah.
They crapped the bed twice against Costa Rica. I mean,
if the phantom Panama goal, not counted, the one that didn't go in, had that not counted, had we simply played a little bit better against TNT, tried a little bit harder, there were tons of nights. So whatever.
Let's move on.
Anyway,
let's move on. Josh Sargent.
The kid plays on a different level. His vision, his skill. He doesn't yet. I mean, maybe yet is the wrong word. He doesn't have the touch of Messi or something, but his ability to position his body to create space for himself, or to push the defender off at the same time he plays the ball for his next move. He's not going to be playing U23 ball for long.
No, he absolutely is not. I agree with you on the part of vision. He knows how to get himself into spaces to be dangerous, whether it's to create his own shot or to play it off. Now, to be fair, if I'm a defender, I'm staying away from him because the man has no soul. So as a defender, I'm backing off of him altogether. So he's either going to be the soulless ginger, or he's going to be I'm going to either that, or I'm going to rip on Zach Zaidman, and he's the ginger hair genius. I mean, we could go with that as well. We'll see. Time will tell which one he gets, because the last ginger with the U.S. national team is proving he has no soul in Alexi Lau. So, but no, great. Where he positions himself in making his runs, he gets himself into places where he can be dangerous, that he can still receive the ball. When the ball's on his feet, it's not easy to get it off of him necessarily. And the goal he scored, it took a deflection, but that was a pretty wicked setup. I mean,
it was a good shot though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was going on goal even if it hadn't been deflected. Like it just ended up going to the other side of the goal. But it was well done.
Yeah, and
Um,
it absolutely was. It absolutely was. And I see our Josh Sargent goat, who I think is really just anonymity in disguise, being anonymous. Skill, vision, touch, and oh my God, he's going to take souls. Yes, that's exactly hit. That's the package that is Josh Sargent. I know you. I know. I'm sure you've got an affinity because he's from St. Louis.
he is from the Lou, so he's one of my boys.
Didn't? Yeah. I mean, so good for him.
Yeah,
Hey, if it gets Bobby Wood and his inability, to recapture his form off the field, I'm 100% in favor of it.
part of me wonders if Wood wouldn't actually be more effective with someone like Sargent there. Like Sargent isn't just a goal scorer. He's not just a striker. He is actually a playmaker there too. I mean, the was it a Acosta's shot that missed, but uh,
Yeah.
Sargent got the ball like in the box and actually like faked like he was going to take a shot, got the defender to dive, like to slide and just slide right past him and just played it back and then laid off this like soft as butter square pass to I was it Acosta? It seems like maybe it was Acosta, but I can't remember who it was now.
Right, but
Um,
I don't know. I might have switched. Or was it Wea?
oh yeah. He says Weah missed. Yeah. It was. Now I remember. Yes, it was Tim Weah. Um, that kind of stuff. He has composure on the ball that a kid who's not playing first team minutes shouldn't have, especially at 18.
I'm
Um,
going to step back and say I believe this is the point where not having a soul helps him in that regard. And yes, the jokes are going to keep going. So if you don't like soul ginger jokes, another free another free show to go watch, done by a couple of other hacks.
Yeah, there were a few instances in that game where I don't want to hype any player up too much. I mean, I still don't want to overhype Pulisic, but man, there were things that he was doing that it was like, oh, I don't remember seeing guys do this for us. One at that age, but for the most part, do that period short of somebody like Pulisic.
Yeah, and realistically, I might get. Yeah, I believe Sargent is getting up the frame for Bremen after this week. So good for him if that is. I mean, that's the easy. So wow, did not miss anything with the Thursday night game, by the way.
Well, you're kind of breaking up. I don't know what you just said.
I was looking at the score of the Thursday night football game. There's
Oh,
no prize in that one. 42-10
no.
Denver.
I couldn't even believe that game was actually on national TV tonight.
Well, I think everybody gets an appearance. Even Cleveland got one already this year. So I just blame your new headphones. So
I don't know. I mean, Sergeant. Yeah, I literally my notes it just says Sergeant dot dot dot. Wow. Acosta, I thought improved his stock. Amon, I watch him and he's still very raw. I mean, he definitely needs to grow and get more experience. But there were some things he was doing that I also thought maybe there's something there.
a lot of speed, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
And very undisciplined. I mean, there were, like you said, there are
Yeah.
moments of brilliance, and then there's other things going. Did he just run into the crowd to go order himself a soda? It's one of those things you're like, where is he going? Did he realize he has to defend that guy? But again, we expect some of that, though. That's kind of what, again, that's why you're getting these guys out here now against Peru.
Yeah.
And you'll see some more of these guys when they go against Italy and they go against England, hopefully. And let's fight again. These are the types of games you find out what they can do and what they can't do. So,
Guzan, on the whole, I actually thought he had a pretty good game.
Yeah,
I mean, not that he had a ton to really do, but
for being on the back foot most of the game, you would think he would have had more to do. He had a couple of nice saves.
Yeah.
The goal was absolutely not his fault. He had a couple that saved that kept them in the game. I've got no problem with Guzan. I don't think he's a number one. I disagree. Was that Twelman that was saying, or was it in the Columbia game they were saying that they think he's the number one?
I think Twelman did say something about it. Yeah,
he's not the number one. I still think it's Zach Steffen, and I think it's Zach Steffen's job to lose at this point. I would like to see Gonzalez and see what he can do on this level more than a cameo in a Gold Cup to tie down so he can't go play for Mexico.
He never even got the cameo, did he? Because he got injured.
Did he? I thought he got a cameo, but I'm not sure.
I thought he never even got the run out.
Oh, okay, or Christian saying it was Stu Holden that said it. I think Guzan might be fine as a number 2, or in the Nick Romando number 3. Hey, I've been here before. I'm going to make sure you guys all know what you're doing.
I think he's more than fine in that number 3 spot. I honestly don't have a problem with him. I mean, I've always kind of liked him because, one, he does actually have the ability to play with his feet, and he's a well-positioned keeper. He's not the same kind of shot stopper that Tim Howard was, but he was never the same keeper Tim Howard was.
No, so, Tim Howard was a much better shot stopper. I'm going to use a comparison that you and I have talked about many times. It was kind of like the difference between Casey Keller and Brad Friedel.
Oh yeah.
Except that Casey Keller was a much natural, more gifted shot stopper. Brad Friedel had more of the cerebral part of the game. The defense was always in the right places with Friedel, where Friedel didn't have to make the spectacular saves as often. The difference was Friedel could make most of them as well. He wasn't that far behind Keller as a shot stopper. There was a lot tighter difference. Where Howard, same thing. Howard can make saves right, left. Guzan, his defense is always in the right place. His positioning is better than Tim Howard's, so he doesn't have to make the spectacular saves as frequently. He just isn't quite Brad Friedel's level of player.
Oh yeah.
He's still very good, but
there's definitely a reason why Friedel will still for some time to the future at least be our best keeper ever, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's, and we can have that discussion. I mean, there's been so many of them I would put in that as well. I don't think he's the number one. I still like Zach Steffen as the number 1 overall, because I think Zach Steffen has a lot of natural talent, and I think his cerebral part of the game for being younger is absolutely phenomenal at this point. Like I said, I want to see more of Gonzalez. I want to see what he can do. I saw Horvath.
Horvath needs to get a starting job again.
Yes, you got to.
The problem was once he kind of lost it there at Bruges, he's just not been the same guy, and it's hurt his club chances, which is just in turn hurt his national team chances. Well, and until he can truly lock it down, he'll always be an also ran. I mean, he goes from probably being the guy who was the number 1, the heir apparent, a year and a half ago, to being 3rd, 4th, maybe.
Bill Hamid is falling way behind.
I think Hamid's done.
Well, Hamid level, I think you might be right. I think he's going to get one. I think he'll get a run out in Camp Cupcake, and if he can play. The problem for Bill Hamid is he went to Europe. If you go to Europe, this is the same thing that we have maintained, and you were just touching upon it. With goalkeepers, it's imperative. You have to have game minutes. Field players may not be as imperative because you get the same type of, you can get a lot of it in practice, not quite all of it, but you get goalkeeping, you do not get that in practice. It is game minutes. It is game reps. You have to be the starter somewhere. That's why Bill Hamid fell so far behind. He went to Europe and he didn't play. That's the problem Horvath's having. He's not playing. Zach Steffen is playing week in and week out. I believe Gonzalez got some time. He might have gotten hurt with Dallas again too. But you got to be playing. That is the bottom line. And that's why I saw somebody, I think it was it Apple Juice or Christian, was saying that they think Zach Steffen needs to go to Europe only if he's going to play.
Yeah, no,
I agree. You can't come here and sit on it. And that's when if you look at what's his name? Oh, what's his name? Just started the other night.
Which game are you talking about?
The bald.
Guzan, you mean?
Yeah,
Or
Guzan. Sorry, I
oh,
completely brain froze.
I was like,
With Guzan, but
do you literally
Guzan,
mean the guy we were just talking
yeah,
about?
but look at Guzan now versus a year ago. He's playing. His
Yeah.
game is better again. I get it. MLS is not the Premier League. It's not the English Championship. It might be the English Championship, but you need to be playing and you need to be playing regularly. Guzan was not playing regularly in England anymore, so his game looks a lot more polished now than it did when he was coming in after sitting on the bench in England. So I guess that was kind
Yeah.
of what I was getting to.
Robert asked, what about the fact that he just had back-to-back relegations in England? You know, my feeling on that, I have a couple things, I guess, that I think about something like that. One is there are lots of crappy teams that still have good keepers playing for them because they know they need them. So I don't necessarily fault a guy because he was on a relegation team. Like sometimes good players get stuck on shitty teams. It happens a lot. But on top of that, like his time at Middlesbrough, they had given up. Those guys weren't trying at all.
I guess I would. You ever think of it from this point? He was good enough that a team that just got promoted thought enough
yeah,
to bring him
yeah,
in. Yeah, he got relegated twice, but
I mean,
after the first team went down, the other team said, "Hey,
yeah,
we think he can help us stay up." And yeah,
I
middle
felt
was absolutely pants.
I felt like it was kind of bad luck on his part, and I felt like it got into his head, and then it just became kind of a vicious cycle working on itself. That it wasn't necessarily that he was at fault for what was happening. It was just that when teams are that bad, defenders and goalkeepers tend to get a lot of blame for it. Whether they're truly, whether an individual player in that mix is truly responsible or not, they tend to face a lot of criticism. And I felt like he was at times unfairly targeted and unfairly blamed for some of the things that were happening. And then I think that got to him. And goalkeepers, kind of like strikers, can be kind of like starting pitchers or something in baseball. They can be if they're not if their head's not right, their life's not right. And I just felt like he was in a bad position in both cases. And I think it hurt him. And I felt like moving to MLS was actually probably a good thing for him because he was for sure going to get a starting spot. And maybe that would give him the chance then to kind of boost his confidence, boost his game, get things set again. And I don't, I do tend to believe that, yeah, somebody like Stefan probably stays number one because if nothing else, even though Guzan isn't so old that like you consider age against him as a goalkeeper, I still think you probably look at young guys right now because you're still building for the future. And Guzan has another World Cup under, like but
No,
beyond that,
and
no, he's his career's pretty much over.
because
Um,
like I said, I think Guzan right now is still your number two. I don't think he's your number one, but I guess I could see him at number two until Gonzalez shows more on a national level. But he needs to be called in for those games to do it. Now I'm not going to say no to Guzan. Sorry, Mr. Pitt Steelers for life.
I like Robles, Lord Drago, but he's also just too old. I mean, it's sort of like he sort of is the new Nick Rimando, where it's like, can't we find somebody else? It's not a knock against him. It's just like, come on, like there's got to be a young guy who can take this spot.
And there are Yarbrough, Horvath, Stefan, Gonzalez. I mean, there are. I don't think Hamid is. I think Hamid's still relatively young for goalkeeping.
He's younger than Robles, isn't he? Robles is like as old as Guzan, isn't
he? I believe
maybe,
so.
Maybe 2 years younger, maybe 32.
I don't know. Bill Hamid is 27 right now, so he still has. He's still got time on his side. So, which I thought he was older than that because he's been around the fringe national team for several years.
He's been around for a long time, yeah.
Robles reminds me of Nick Rimando because he's 5'11", Robles is 34.
Oh well, then he is the same age as Guzan. So
I love Robles. I love watching him play. But he's 34. No,
to me, he's just he's past it just by nature. So
Twyman
anyway,
Twelman's going to be the next Screaming A in 20 years. I wouldn't go
Except
that far.
Twelman makes good points.
I think Twelman's future, honestly, is basically the next Mike Golick to go with Greenberg. He seems to play well with Mike Greenberg in the morning, and he makes that show tolerable when he's on it, as opposed to Jalen Rose and anybody else I've seen on it. But anyway, that's enough on Twelman. Let's move on. What else do we got? The Crew. Do we want to talk about that quickly?
The Crew are saved. How about that? And the crazy thing, I don't know if the rest of you guys realize this. Like, I get a text from Pat that morning saying that the Crew are safe. It's really happened or whatever. And I go to Twitter to look this up because I hadn't heard it yet. And the first thing I see is a tweet from the Columbus Dispatch saying, yeah, we're investigating because we can't confirm this rumor anywhere. And then it turns out that it came from a fake Grant Wall account. There's now a fake Grant Wall account tweeting real news, apparently.
Well, and and I saw that as well, and that's when people started losing their minds. The thing a couple people that I follow that I believe are in the know, and I don't remember who they were, both said, no, there are rumblings coming out of this. This may be what may or may not happen, but there is something. And was it Twelman, Martino? One of them was already talking about being in Columbus anyway. So there were things going on already. I mean, if everything goes through, it's a good deal for Columbus. It allows Precourt to save face. Everybody's like, well, they get the expansion fee. They're going to get it anyway. They just decided to put the name and everything. I'm starting to wonder what'll happen first, Precourt in Austin or Beckham in Miami. I think they're both going to just kind of be out there somewhere. So
I would guess probably Beckham, just because they're going to try and drive that one so hard. But I don't know, that one seems like everything's in place for it. They're just waiting on him, and nothing ever seems to happen. So who knows? Maybe it could be Precourt. But I'm just glad the Crew got saved, because I didn't want to see Columbus be lost as a location. It's not even so much like I've never been a fan of the Crew. I've spent years, like since the creation of MLS, I've made fun of them for that old logo with the Marky Mark and the Funky Crew.
I was gonna say, I was gonna say the Village Crew, but yeah, you get the same point.
It always reminded me of some like old Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch picture, so I always called them the Funky Crew before they changed the logo. But I love the location for U.S. Mexico games, and even with the loss 2 years ago, I don't want to see that given up. It's a tradition now. I don't want to see that lost as the home of those games. And my feeling was, if they go away, U.S. soccer's leaving too. Because realistically, who's going to maintain that stadium if nothing else? And that stadium needs to be replaced. It's getting old. It's out of date by far compared to some of the other MLS leading stadiums. But my real hope for saving the Crew was that you can't, one, lose your foundation team, and two, I don't want to lose a fundamental part of a U.S. Mexico tradition. So I'm extremely happy that they've been saved. I hope that maybe some of the talk that they've had around a new stadium or something could come out of all this. That maybe something cool will come of this. And, congratulations to Crew fans that you guys get to keep your team.
And that all being said, and I was listening to you, believe it or not, even though I wasn't looking at you. And now I'm back to hating the Crew. You got your team back. Good. Screw you. I'm a Fire fan. You guys can go to hell again. I'm fine with that. And I did see, and Robert Cordova had a good point in there as well. So what of the three happens first? Austin, Miami, or NYCFC gets a stadium?
Huh. I'd say Austin.
I'm going to say Miami. I'll take Miami for that one. And then I see Drew mentioning Austin getting a team in regards to Sacramento, Detroit. Detroit has the money. They don't have the stadium. They're not going to get the stadium. It's whether Don Garber wants to let him play at Ford Field. I don't think that's going to happen.
I hope
I
not.
don't think Sacramento has the money. I think that's what they're running into because they seem to keep trying to add investors. I think next is Phoenix. I think that's your next one. They have the money, they have the ownership in place, and I believe they're looking to build right on the ASU campus with some sort of a roof to keep it cool. But they're drawing out there now. I know exactly where their stadium is just on the other side of the freeway from where the Cubs put their new spring training complex is. It's relatively close to Phoenix. It's in It's like on the border of Phoenix and Tempe. It's a great location in that sense. I think Phoenix is going to be your next one. I think if they may come in with Austin, I think it might be where you're going to see that coming in. Um, so U.S. national coach. So now we've heard Berhalter and Tab Ramos.
Yeah, yeah. Jorge Ramos says that that Tab Ramos is going to be the next coach. Um, Again, if that's the case, why didn't it happen a year ago? Like my general feeling was the whole reason that Tab wasn't even named as like the interim was that they weren't giving him the job or that they did something and he wouldn't accept it. Like they just dicked him over a little bit and he felt like, oh, screw you guys, I'm not taking it right now. Um, I
I'm not.
I know the games are meaningless. I know all the arguments on that side. That said, if this is the decision you were going to make, you could have made it a year ago and it wouldn't have made any difference. So why not make it a year ago?
But I think part of it is they, for whatever reason, U.S. Soccer said it's going to be the general manager who's going to have input into this. We have to hire a general manager first. Now Ernie Stewart's looking at it. Maybe he came back to it and said, "Hey, maybe I want Tab Ramos," but we haven't seen any of that confirmed. Tab Ramos, I don't like him as much as I like Berhalter or Perea or any of the other MLS names that we've heard thrown out there with it. So I'm not as excited about Tab Ramos, but he does know the U.S. You know, he's been around the national teams on the youth level, so I guess he's got that part going for him. But again, like you said, if he was really that outstanding, he would have gotten the job right away. They wouldn't have had to screw around with looking for a general
Yeah,
manager and all that stuff. They would have said, "All right, Tab, it's your
yeah,
show." But obviously, there's something with him that they're not sold on. So I'm still thinking it's Berhalter's to lose in that sense. So
I would agree. I would agree.
I suppose
Um,
Christian mentioned. Sorry, I'm going to go back to the MLS expansion watch. St. Louis. I forgot they said is it Enterprise or National, whoever their ownership group is. They're now trying to redo that down in St. Louis. So maybe
See, they've got everything in place except the city agreeing to it because they've tried to get some kind of money to like build a stadium, basically like a TIF district or whatever. And the problem is, again, fucking Stan Kroenke, because Stan Kroenke screwed the city over. Everyone's like, well, we're not paying another sports team to build a stadium. Go to hell.
they shouldn't have to.
Because because sure, but come on, everybody does it.
Everybody does it, and it's just they gotta hide it better. You got to do it more along what
Yeah,
they did in Minnesota. Hey, the city will pay for the infrastructure because you got to have that anyway.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe they get a tax break. They don't pay sales tax on the materials or something like that. You find little ways of doing it. You just don't come out and pay for all of it
yeah.
anymore. But I believe they have a new ownership group coming in that's actually working with St. Louis FC as opposed to like a competing group. So hopefully, I wouldn't mind seeing St. Louis as another team I can hate. You know,
I
being a
I
Fire fan,
I will
I'd be
say
great with that.
I will say 1/3 of USFanTV absolutely wants St. Louis to be the next MLS team. I'll be a
Well,
fine fan of that.
I guess I could say half because Pat's still Hat guy's still out on strike. So, what other things are on your notes?
So he
I
doesn't
forget
get a
what.
vote.
Nope, he doesn't get a
Tata
vote.
Martino. Tata Martino. The rumor is that he has agreed on a contract with Mexico. They can't sign anything until December, but supposedly money and everything has been worked out. They just have to get like the Mexican Federation just has to get the owners of club teams across Mexico to agree to like kick in more money or something like that. But supposedly everything the deal's all worked out. So Um, yeah. Uh, so even Mexico can recruit from MLS faster than we can.
Again, if that's somebody you want,
Uh,
fine. Good for him. He hasn't won a damn thing in Atlanta yet. I'd like to point that out. Yeah, they draw 60,000. Good for them. They haven't won a damn thing yet. They made the playoffs their first year. Yeah, so did the Fire. The Fire won the whole thing. Seattle made it their first year. Good for them. You know what? LAFC's made it in their first year. Win something, then come talk to me. Sorry if there's any Atlanta United or Three Stripe fans or whatever they call themselves. Win something first, then we can talk about these things.
Yeah, Robert, that's what I was talking about. St. Louis put a tax break. See, the thing was the previous ownership group got all kinds of support from St. Louis County as opposed to St. Louis City because the county, like St. Louis itself, is actually a fairly large metropolitan area. Like this, the county of St. Louis covers a rather large area compared to like the very small city of St. Louis. They wanted to put the stadium in the city of St. Louis, but they got all the county support. So the county people were all on board, but the vote was in the city, and the city told them all go to hell because
and
they'd just been through all this with Kroenke and the Rams, and they gave Kroenke, they bent over backwards for the Rams to keep him, and then Kroenke went, "Oh, thanks, I'm going to move him to LA."
and wasn't now the other part of it is, and correct me on this when it comes to St. Louis, like you hear Chicago, Cook County, it really is the same thing where in St. Louis, if you're talking St. Louis versus St. Louis County is the suburbs. It's not the
Yeah,
city itself. Where
yeah, no,
if you say
absolutely, yeah,
where in Chicago, if you're saying you're getting money from Cook County, it can still be in the city proper and be
yeah,
Cook County, as opposed to St. Louis, where it's really the county is the suburbs in this case.
pretty much, yeah. I mean, I was I lived in St. Louis County, like right on the border, and was maybe like 10 miles outside of the city. Probably it's not even that far, 5 or 6 maybe at the most. Uh, and yeah, it was like I was within a mile or something of the border um, between city and county, and it was the city itself because it kind of just incorporates like the bend in the river that counts some of the city, and then a little bit it's like a half moon kind of shape inside of the river that accounts for the city, and yeah, most of the money's in the county, and even though it's just a couple miles away, it it wasn't they didn't do it right, and then it came right on the heels, like right on the heels of Stan Kroenke screwing everybody over. So everybody was pissed off, and it's like, well, why should commit to anything when these owners come in and they screw you over? And to some extent, you can't blame them. I mean, it's true.
All right. So what else is on your notes?
The only other thing, Winalda, one
I
Eric
forgot about
Winalda,
that.
our favorite part of the night, perhaps, new head coach of your Las Vegas Lights FC.
When you talk about a natural successor to Chile's, it really the hell Chile, it's got to be Winalda. Um, you know, I like mocking Eric Winalda because I think on Twitter he makes an ass out of himself more times than not. He'll disagree with me because, well, it's Eric Winalda. That said, Eric Winalda, in terms of a soccer mind, he's really good. He's gotten a lot of out of bad teams when he shows up. Now the commute is closer. He's not going to Atlanta, so he doesn't have to do practices by Skype. He can actually show up in Vegas. But based on how the Las Vegas Lights are run, I think this is an outstanding hire and fits right in. I mean, are they really the Lights or are they really the Llamas? I saw someone call them the Llamas again. I thought that works. You know, they've already got great talent in Freddie. Oh, never mind. Screw it. It's a Las Vegas Lights. It's a sideshow. But man, you talk about something that embodies everything that is about Las Vegas, good and bad. Las Vegas Lights kind of remind me of Fremont Street. It still does the job, but man, it's not always the prettiest thing out there. So
Yeah, this was I mean, granted, I'm sure there were discussions and things, but it kind of yeah to have it come out of nowhere, it was rather funny because man, his deal with the Silverbacks was interesting when he was coaching them, and not really around. But
Coaching via Skype, from what I've heard.
yeah, pretty much.
So
Um, yeah, I don't know. Like, part of me loves Winalda, and part of me all like. And this goes back to his playing days. Part of me loves him, but part of me just shakes my head at him.
but when you think of somebody who should be coaching the Las Vegas Lights or the Las Vegas Llamas,
Oh, yeah.
it absolutely, and he's technically, it's his, he's a technical director. It's his team. I mean, so they're going to blow it up. I'm guessing he'll have three guys that carries over. I don't know which three, and he'll rebuild the team. They'll be better than they were this year, but they were bad this year. So I, I'd like the hire if he shows up and he's engaged. I think it could be awesome. It fits in perfectly with Las Vegas. It really does. I think it's, in that sense, it's outstanding.
Oh,
Um,
he'll run his mouth. He'll say things that will get them attention. It'll probably, if they can get him to last for the season, it'll get viewership. It'll get social media coverage because he's Ronaldo. Like, part of what I love about him is the dude will say whatever is on his mind. I hate, like, one of the things I like about Twelman is that he doesn't just toe the company line. Like, if he gets angry enough, he'll just say what he really thinks. He's actually informed though. Ronaldo will just like say. Ronaldo will do what we did like after last October 10th, where it's like you're just gonna blow up. Who the hell knows what's coming out of your mouth? And
you,
part of me loves that because I hate the the sanitized um, faux objectivity of most commentators.
now here's my question. El Chile got what? He got suspended for 8 games in the middle of the season, I believe, for throwing a beer or starting a fight with a fan or something like that from in the stands. What will Ronaldo top that in his first season? Will he get at least banned for a total of 8 games?
I don't think so unless Jim Rome does something to like to somehow cover this and he threatens to fight him.
All right, I can't argue that. Oh, sweet. So I will say that kind of I saw somebody mention Michael Bradley got booed last night in DC. Well, he's playing for Toronto. Of course he should get booed.
Yeah.
I give him a ton of credit though. Finishes up with the national team, gets on a plane and meets his team and plays the next night. I get it. He had a cameo on
Yeah, I
Tuesday
mean he
night,
came in
but
what the last 20 minutes or whatever, yeah.
and even he said they asked him why. He goes, "Well, I love to play. Good for him. I'm glad he did that and went out and played. Yeah, they got beat. Rooney's goal was a thing of beauty, but so what else do we got on there?
Uh it looks like mostly some people have asked who's going to make the MLS playoffs and
I guess the MLS
should
was probably what they're looking for versus the
I'm sorry,
playoff.
what did you say?
The MLS Cup versus the MLS Cup. Who do we think is going to go to the
Oh,
finals?
yeah,
Probably more.
probably.
I don't know. What do you?
Not Toronto this year?
No, I believe they are out. That
Yeah, so much for that one. Possibly the most dominant team in MLS history can't even make the playoffs in a league that essentially lets every team make the playoffs.
after they went to the CONCACAF Champions League final, it
Yeah.
was like that. They, it's kind of like you. You kind of like you're in your life. Peak too soon. I don't know. I wouldn't want to play DC right now. But then again, they're playing all their games at home. I don't think Atlanta. I'm not sold on Atlanta. I think Red Bulls comes out of the East.
Part of me had wondered about Columbus when I still believed they were going to be sold. When I still believed they were going to move. Because I really thought, oh, maybe this is how like they all kind of this is like how they're going to make their statement, like they'll try to go out on top. uh part of me wondered about like say how Berhalter might leave. Oh, see, they'll win it all. He'll go to become the U.S. coach. The team will move to Austin. Now that none of that's happening, part of me thinks like for them it's like the worst timing because it happens just before it all really becomes meaningful. You know, they could have found out in a month and been fine, or they could have found out a month ago and it might not have meant anything. But right here, it's like, oh, well, I guess we don't have to worry about moving now, and maybe they all kind of lose their focus. So now I'm not as convinced to them. I'm not I'm not against Atlanta. They get they've got some good players now. Granted, if it's true that Almiron is going to Arsenal, maybe he's not as focused too going into the playoffs. But I don't know. Like they've got some very good players. Tata Martino's done very well. I have trouble believing that a team that is doing so well in the season can't go pretty far into the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
Like I said, I think out of these, I like Red Bulls. I don't know
there
why
is that. I mean,
they're second. They're sitting in second in the East. They're a point behind Atlanta, so they're very good. They have Robles. Of course, then again, Atlanta has Guzan. With with Red Bull, what is it? It's Jesse Marsh now, right? Running them.
yeah.
But I mean, with Jesse Marsh taking over, is that it? Yeah, he took over midseason, or did he
Yeah.
leave?
What you mean Red Bull Leipzig, right?
No, I'm talking New York Red Bull. Who took over for him? All right, somebody in the chat box, tell me who took over for Jesse Marsh when Marsh went to Leipzig. Was it Armis? It wasn't Armis, was it?
Yeah. Armis is doing it now, right?
He might be.
That's right, isn't it?
Marsh left, so we know that they're catching up to us on this one. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah,
Chris
it's
Armis.
Armis. But I mean, you go through that kind of transition and you don't skip a beat. My point being was that's a solid team. If you don't
Yeah.
skip a beat on kind of with that big of a move, yeah, where's King Leipzig when you need it? He would have known that answer.
Yeah.
Kansas
Out of the
City,
West, out of the West,
I don't know.
part
Without it,
part of me, part of
with the West, West is meaningless without Zlatan. If it's Zlatan not in the
I
playoffs,
know,
it's
I
not
know, I
nearly as
know, I
fun.
know. I was kind of hoping that the Galaxy would really do something because of him. Um, also, I'm afraid that if they don't, it means maybe he won't stay, and that's I hope if he leaves, he goes somewhere else in MLS because I don't want him to leave. I don't care if people are tired of his act. I'm not.
No,
I
I enjoy his act more than ever. 50,000 are going to show up in Minnesota to watch him, so he's going to actually play on the turf.
yeah.
50,000 people are coming to see him. He's he is fun. I'm sorry, and
That dude is entertaining. I love him. You guys don't know this, but between like Pat and TJ and I made uh, whatever they call it, those animojis. Those like on the new iPhones, they have like you can make your a personal emoji of yourself. You can make it. I made a Zlatan one just to make comments about Zlatan to these guys.
I don't see Zlatan leaving LA just because it's LA. I think
He's
he'll
made it
make
sound like
more
he'll
money.
stay, but to me, I don't know how they fit it into their contracts. But whatever. That's off the topic of who's going to make it to the MLS finals. Um,
Would you want to
I
bet
don't
against
I don't know
would you
who to
want to bet
pick.
against Seattle? They're peaking at the right time.
I was going to say
LAFC.
maybe KC. I don't know who to pick out of.
I don't like Sporting KC, so I'm just going to say no to Sporting KC just because I don't like them.
That was kind of why I wasn't picking FC Dallas.
No, I guess that too. So how about we just go with Bob because we're a U.S. national team based show? How about we go with Bob Bradley and
all right.
LAFC?
Boom. There
Bob
we go.
Bradley and LAFC.
Even though that does mean some Dos Santos love there.
Well, no, because they're with the Galaxy, both of them.
Wait. Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right. I was thinking of Carlos Vela. I'm sorry.
Vela's with LAFC, yes.
Yeah, I was thinking Carlos Five.
No, the Dos Santos. Dos
Yes.
Santoses are with the Galaxy. How they're both still there if Zlatan hasn't killed them, now that's another.
Maybe they're fighting on the side.
Uh,
Um,
let's see. MLS teams part of Copa Libertadores. That's the rumor.
oh, that's right. That is interesting.
I'm all.
Also, have we talked about the rumor that after the 2026 World Cup, perhaps Liga MX and MLS might combine?
And Christian just brought that one up. We haven't talked about that, but here we are. We're almost at 90 minutes. So
Oh my God! Oh, I didn't. Okay, yeah, we got to wrap this up. Quick thoughts on Henri becoming coach of Monaco. Uh, it makes total sense between his history there, his history with Arsene Wenger, and Arsene Wenger's history at Monaco.
it's perfect. It's a
Cool.
good fit.
I hope nothing but the best for him. I love that he and Vieira are both coaching in Ligue 1, and I hope that if they succeed there, one of them becomes an Arsenal manager in the not too distant future.
Wow, we're gonna finish on a positive note.
And on that, yeah, I think it's time to wrap things up. So we are, of course, USFanTV. We are on YouTube at least once a week, as you should be aware at this point. We're also
When you
on.
don't break it.
This time I'm innocent, you guys. This time I'm innocent.
All right.
We're on Facebook. We're on the interwebs. We are on Instagram. We are on.
Chris is on
I
Snapchat.
don't remember if I said Facebook, but we're on Facebook. We're on.
I think you got them all.
We're there.
Twitter. We're on Twitter.
I don't think I mentioned Twitter, so there we go. So check us out. Give us a follow. Tell your friends about us. Hopefully they'll follow us too. And hey, hang out with us for a little while. Sometimes for way too long. And on that note, TJ, any last thoughts?
Nope, I have nothing for tonight. You're done.
All right. Yes. Thanks, everybody. You're done.